Hey everybody, what is going on? Hexlex here. Got another Master Duel video for you. Coming at you with some more Fiendsmith Spright. If you know anything about me, then you know that Spright is my absolute favorite deck of all time, so I definitely made sure to get some more ranked ladder in with this deck. And even though I haven't been playing a lot of ranked lately, I did still manage to rank up with Spright. Even though I've been playing Kewl and Elfnote, it was eventually Spright that actually got me up to Diamond. I know, only in Diamond, but as I mentioned, I haven't really been grinding rank ladder as much lately. So, with this hand, I actually kind of want to back up and talk about it for a second. I could have pivoted into Fiendsmith stuff here before two-locking myself with the starter. However, at the time when I could have done that, my board was... it would have been swap, blue, and jet. And I had a few different options there. We could have either linked into Moon and pivot into Fiendsmith, or we could have tried to use blue plus jet to make the Djinn Buster and have a monster negate up. But unfortunately, neither route really plays, I think, very efficiently. Obviously, if I go into Fiendsmith, I'm hugely opening myself up to Nibiru among a bunch of other hand traps. And Djinn Buster, while providing a monster negate, would be a lot of resources used. So that's why I decided to commit to two-locking and just went for the Spright red. But even though we don't get access to Fiendsmith stuff here, we do still get to end on a very solid end board. The pure Spright end board, quote-unquote pure, because of course you're going to use some amount of like Nimble and Frog monsters as your engine. But this end board is actually a lot more solid than you might think, and even against a meta deck like Elfnote, which we're up against here, you know, it's still going to be very hard for the opponent to break through, because we get to end, of course, on the red negate, as well as we do end up making Djinn Buster here after the fact. And then we're going to use the Ronin effect in order to revive, and then we can link into the IP Masquerena. On top of that, we have the Imperm hand. Spright starter will get us the carrot on our opponent's turn for the spell Trap negate, and then we're going to use Ronin to revive and have an extra body to either send with a Spright monster or link away with the IP Masquerena. So we're pretty well set up here. As mentioned during draw phase, we're going to get the carrot online, and yeah, we've got two monster negates, we got a spell Trap negate, and then we have the IP going into SP, and that's just our board off our combo. We also have the Imperm as well for a total of 4 negates plus 2 banishes, which is obviously really good. They're going to begin with the Lucina. I'm going to use the Djinn Buster. The reason I use Djinn Buster first is because it negates and doesn't destroy, and although I would like to destroy the Lucina, they could just special summon another Elfnote from their hand. So actually, I want to keep Lucina on the board for the time being. But yeah, by using the Djinn Buster, not only do we negate and not destroy, but also then we can use red or carrot to send away our Djinn Buster to negate and destroy. That's something that you really got to be mindful of as you're setting up your Spright board is, especially with Spright red, being able to both negate and destroy the monster is so powerful, especially in this meta, but of course in general here. So yeah, Djinn Buster is going to negate. And then they attempted to move the battle phase, and I decided to commit to going IP into SP. Although I could have also just let them battle. Like, even if they battle Lucina over IP Masquerena, then I can just use Elf to revive IP as soon as they summon their next monster. But you could also do what I did here and just go SP Little Knight, banish the monster, and again, I was a little bit concerned about freeing up their center main monster zone because I thought they were just going to plop down like Tinia or Fortuna. I guess Fortuna wouldn't have been that bad, but I was a little scared of them just summoning Tinia. However, it seems they didn't really have any follow-up here. But I mean, as you can see, even if they did have follow-up, we still had multiple disruption effects and negates that we hadn't used yet. So, again, just demonstrating the power of even a pure Spright end board without the Fiendsmith stuff is still really, really good against the current meta decks. But let's check out another more back and forth game. And this back and forth game is going to be up against DInomorphia, which it's one of those decks where I don't face it very often. But when I do come against DInomorphia, I'm immediately reminded of how much I hate playing against this deck. It feels like if they get their back row established, it's almost impossible to break through. But here we get to go first, and we did open the Kashtira Fenrir. Fenrir is a really good, not only end board piece, obviously for its banish effect, but also in Spright and with Fiendsmith, it's a really good combo piece. As mentioned in previous videos, you can go Fenrir plus any level 2 monster to make Sprend, or Fenrir plus any other monster to make Moon of the Closed Heaven. But here we get to combo in such a way where we're going to do Fiendsmith and Spright stuff and still keep the Fenrir on our board because we just have that much gas in our opening hand. But Yeah, definitely don't be afraid to use the Fenrir to combo off. And in fact, as mentioned, there are a lot of hands where even if you open just Fenrir plus Fulos, well, that still lets you go into your Fiendsmith line, and you could go sequence plus another monster, link them into Sprind to then set up your Spright board. You don't get the Caesar at that point, but it's definitely worth it. So, yeah, Fenrir plus any monster being full Fiendsmith and or Spright combo is just so good. One of the main reasons why I've been really enjoying this deck even more than usual lately. Speaking of the Fiendsmith line, here is the Caesar. Love adding that to our end board. And we still have the Beaver plus Sequence in hand. Now, I'm going to overlay going into the Gigantic here, rather than making Sprind. And the reason for that is because we already have access to Beaver plus Angler here, so I don't really feel the need to go into Sprind. It would kind of clog up my board state a little bit here. For some reason, I thought, okay, no, yeah, we did already have the 2 Beavers. I only saw one in the graveyard. Yeah, the other one was under Gigantic. So even if I were to go into Sprind, dump Angler, I'd only summon 1 Beaver, and then I would just overlay into Gigantic. It'd be the net same amount of bodies used anyway, so... Yeah, from here, pretty standard stuff. Elf's going to revive Swap Frog, but I'm not even going to need to use Ronin Totem's effect. I've got access to so many bodies here. I am going to give up the Gigantic to make IP, but that's mainly because I already have the carrot and then now the red on field. Finally, at the end is when I'm using Fenrir to add another Fenrir. Definitely don't want to do that at the beginning of the combo line, because if they drolled me, I wouldn't be able to add off blue or jet. But to be fair, Spright as a combo line plays through droll anyway, so it probably wouldn't have affected my board state that much. But yeah, just look at this end board here. This is like, I think, the best possible turn 1 end board you could get with this deck. That is the Elf with the Caesar, 2 summon negates, carrot and red for the monster and spell trap negates, IP for 2 banishes when going into SP, and then Fenrir gets a banish as well. So that's 3 banishes and 4 negates on the end board. Totally insane. Again, even though Spright might seem like a bit of an outdated deck, if you go first, you just get to pop off. Now here they are going to have the super polymerization fusing away red plus carrot, but I'm actually not that worried about that, because I can simply use Elf in order to revive one of these monsters to get a negate. But which one? In order to kind of figure out which monster I'd rather have here, we need to look at the card my opponent discarded for super polymerization, which is Soul of the Supreme King. Now there are only a handful of decks in the meta that would use this, DInomorphia being the most likely one, but it could be another trap-based deck like Labyrinth, or Odeon I guess might be teching it. Probably not, but it is a possibility. Could be Stun, uses this a lot, but either way, no matter what deck my opponent's playing, I know they're going to be using a lot of spell and trap card effects, so that's why I'm reviving Carrot here. That's a really small thing. I think a lot of people who might not have paid attention to that would have just been like, oh, monster negates tend to be better, so I'll just grab red. But you really got to use every little bit of information you get, even if it's a simple discard off of Super Poly. And sure enough, it's DInomorphia. They're going to summon the Therizia, setting Domain. We're going to use Fenrir to banish their DInomorphia monster, but Domain can send from deck, so that doesn't really matter that much here. They're going to make the Typhone. However, I'm going to go into Little Knight, and I'm actually going to use Spright Elf to do it, because I already have started to make follow-up Spright plays, and I don't want to give up my carrot for the spell trap negate here. We're going to banish the Garura, or not the Garura, the what did they just make? Typhone, that monster. And then, as they go to end their main phase, or rather, during the next opening I can, I'm going to go starter for blue and then add jet, so that way I had a monster on board to send away with carrot if need be. Alright, we'll switch everything to attack mode. I'll activate Fenrir just to see what they do. They're going to use... Okay, so here they use another Soul of the Supreme King to summon out Zark, and you'll notice I did not Caesar it, or use carrot to negate it. That's because the Zark comes out negated, so it's just going to be basically a vanilla monster with 4k attack, and I can get rid of that pretty easily, even if not with Fenrir. Even if I don't get rid of it, I still have the Ninja Shadow Mosquito to OTK off of it. So I'm going to let that get summoned. As I go to use DInomorphia Domain, however, that I'm going to Caesar, but unfortunately they have DInomorphia intact. Being a counter trap, I cannot negate with the carrot, so they get to negate and destroy Caesar. Bit of bad luck there to run into that. Now the Domain's going to resolve. They're going to get to summon out the Kent Regina. And then they're going to get to use that effect as well. Okay, here's the Zark, which again, I don't really care about that. Alright, Zark F is going to get negated. They're going to activate Kent Regina effect. I'm going to chain Little Knight here to banish out the Kent Regina. They're going to chain Trap Trick. And then I'm going to chain my Spright Carrot here. I think this is a good opportunity to use it. Unfortunately, I made a huge misplay here. I banished the Little Knight because I wasn't thinking. I was just like, oh, I can just go into Ninja Shadow Mosquito with these. But it's like, no, if you banish Little, or if you tribute Little Knight, then the Kent Regina won't get banished and they get summoned Rexterm. So that was just a total lapse of judgment on my part. Yeah, I obviously should have just tributed the Spright Blue. And then the domain would have resolved, or I guess the Kent Regina's effect would have resolved, but they wouldn't have been able to summon Rexterm because they wouldn't have had access to DInomorphia fusion monster. But even with Rexterm up, we can still OTK here because the Ninja Shadow Mosquito having 0 attack isn't subject to the Rexterm Floodgate. Now, obviously the Rexterm can make the Shadow Mosquito's attack equal. However, what I can do here is I can go Sprend and then Sprend plus Carrot into the Gigantic Spright. And Gigantic Spright being stronger than Rexterm can just run over it. Furthermore, I'm going to revive the Engraver here. And this will let me set up the OTK on this turn. In spite of my own misplay, we are going to win right here. DInomorphia Intact is going to negate the battle damage, but I don't really care about that. It wouldn't have finished them off here anyway. Rexterm can revive Therizia, but setting a card doesn't do anything for them here anyway. The only thing that could be threatening is their last face down card, but they haven't used it. So, yep, we're going to place a counter on the Zark. And then we will OTK when Engraver attacks the Zark. So that could have been a lot cleaner of a win if I just tributed Spright Blue instead. Obviously, then Little Knight would have banished out Therizia and they wouldn't have been able to access the what do you call it? The Rexterm anyway. But we were able to persevere in spite of our own misplay and come out with the dub. So, all right, let's take a look at our next replay. All right, here we're up against Cool Tune. Cool Tune can be a little bit rough. I'm not going to lie to you. I did lose to more than one Cool Tune deck when I went second against them on this ladder grind playing Spright because of the level modulating effects of Cool Tune RS and Cool Tune back-to-back. When they're raising the levels of my Spright monsters from 2 to 3, obviously it makes it a lot harder for me to be able to, go into my combo lines. But they're going to Ash Blossom the Spright Blue after I summon to the Swap Frog. Thankfully, we already have Jet in hand. But even without access to Jet, we would be totally fine here. Okay, here's the Fiendsmith pivot. Because I already have the Spright starter in hand, I'm especially not, really concerned about using those bodies to go into Moon. But even if I didn't have starter, I think I would do it anyway because after we make Caesar, we'll have Sequence plus Spright Blue left over. And of course, that's enough to make either Sprend or Gigantic on its own. Now here they did have access to Nibiru, which I was concerned about, in general. But that's also why I held the Spright starter for this long. I'm going to use it to pull Spright Red out of the deck. Then I can link that away with the Primal Being token and then summon Spright Sprend. A lot of the times when I post gameplay of Spright where I'm doing a bunch of stuff before making Gigantic, one of the most common things that people will comment is, aren't you afraid of Nibiru? And a lot of the time the answer is no, because a lot of the time if you have your extender set up, then you will be good to go to play through Nibiru. Like, even without the Spright starter to get red, we still had Ronin plus Swap Frog in the graveyard as well. So even if I didn't have the starter in hand, I still could have gone Ronin, Banish, Swap, Summon, Link with the Nib token and made Sprend that way. So that's why Nibiru just really doesn't concern me that much, and why I'm totally fine doing a bunch of stuff before I activate Gigantic. But yeah, we're going to use Elf to revive the Spright Red here. Then I can use Ronin to revive itself. I did misplay by putting Elf on the right EMZ. I should have put it in the left. Then I could have had Gigantic instead of the Defense Mode Nimble Beaver going into my opponent's turn, but that's not that big of a deal, honestly. Alright, yeah, we got the red, we got the IP, we have a Droll. They're going to go Overtuning for Q. I thought it was particularly odd that they summoned Q, given that Q doesn't activate on normal summon. I was definitely expecting Rekko. But since they summoned Q, I'm going to go ahead and just go into Little Knight now and banish the Q, because it kind of seems like they really want this level 3 tuner. They are going to end up chaining Cool Tune Synchro, so I'm going to chain the Little Knight and then use the second effect to banish the Q. Now, of course, it'll be a temporary banish, not the permanent one, but it'll still be fine. I almost banished the clip instead, but I just don't want them to have easy access to RS here. They're going to add mix and then tune with the clip in order to make the track maker. So track maker chainlink 1, clip chainlink 2, and then they're going to go mix chainlink 3, targeting Sprind. Sprind is fine. I mainly just revived this to have a negate plus destroy option with red, but I could still do that with Elf if I really wanted to. And then obviously I can droll here, so then the track maker doesn't get to search anything. Clip's going to banish my other gigantic, which is actually kind of annoying for follow-up plays, but looks like they're going to go track maker plus the Ash Blossom in hand to make Zaylin. Now Trackmaker bounce effect is going to activate. I tried to activate Lacrima here in Chainlink 2, just see if they would take the bait and activate Zaylin. Obviously, if they would have activated Zaylin, we could have gone red tribute Elf to negate plus destroy, but they have half a brain, so they didn't fall for the very obvious bait here. All right, we're gonna go Requiem effect again, trying to get them to use Zaylin, although they can't really there, right? Because I'm not using Requiem in response to anything, but. They're going to battle over my board, leaving with just the Ronin Totem, but we do get the Little Knight back during the end phase, and we have the opportunity to make some plays here. We're going to activate Engraver, and they're going to immediately concede, which I thought was a little bit fast, but I'm definitely not going to complain. Remember, they used Clip to banish my other Gigantic, so I can't just like go straight into that, but we could, if nothing else, use Ronin plus Little Knight to make Elf revive like Blue or Jet or something, and then just kind of combo out from there. Also would have used Engraver to probably send away the Zaylin to not have to deal with that. So then it just would have been Q plus a nib, and that's like nothing. So there we go. I got one more game to show you before we finish off. Let's end with that one. All right, this last game is going to be a very back and forth going second game against Hero, and this was actually my Diamond rank up game. So as mentioned, we are going second here. Opening Droll plus double Fua is really interesting, right? Well, I guess it would have been more interesting if it was Droll plus Fua. Because I already have a starter and extender in hand, I'd really have a decision to make of whether I use Droll or Fua. But because I have double Fualos, I'm definitely more leaning into trying to resolve this before I Droll. So when my opponent goes Miracle Ejector, send Aqua Dolphin, right? They're going to add the Ian Shuffle, and if I had only one Fualos, and let's say the last card is like, I don't know, Ronin Totem, something completely irrelevant, then I think I might have actually just used Droll. Because again, I have a starter and extender in my hand already, and Droll is like devastating against hero decks. A lot of the time anyway, not every time, but a lot of the time. But again, because I have double Fualos, I really want to resolve both of them. So I'm going to use them against the Ian Shuffle. They do have an Ash Blossom against one, but again, we do have another one, So yeah, in hindsight now, I'm glad I did it this way because this forces out the Ash Blossom and now we don't have to deal with it. Also, it goes to show that if I only had one Fua, Droll definitely would have been right. Because obviously if they would have, you know, used the Ash Blossom against my one Fua and just negated it entirely, that would have been really bad. So I'm going to not use Droll when they add the mask change, because I figured they're probably going to end their turn pretty soon anyway. The only other search this lets them get is for the polymerization, which we're not going to use right now, but they've got double mask change down with 2 dark monsters, and I'm like, okay, are they actually on double Dark Law? We should probably plan for them to be somehow playing 2 Dark Law. I say somehow, I'm not really that familiar with hero extra decks, so maybe double Dark Law is standard, but either way, I'm bracing for it. So we're going to special Fenrir, great top deck, by the way. Normal summon Nimble Beaver, they're going to use Imperm on the Beaver. We're going to go for the Spright Jet, and this does end up baiting out the mask changes, and they are going to resolve both of them. So I was like, okay, I think it's going to be double Dark Law here, which is really unfortunate because Dark Law is not a hard once per turn, meaning they get to banish 2 cards. However, that also isn't going to super matter as far as affecting my plays, because as soon as these Dark Laws activate their effects, I'm simply going to chain Spright Starter, and then they get their Shadow Miss as well. And then now it doesn't really matter if they banish 2 from hand, because the only thing I had to extend my plays in hand anyway was the Spright Starter, and I got to use it. Plus, we're going to special summon Blue, and then we can add off of Blue on the next chain link and not have to worry about the Dark Law banish. Now, unfortunately, Dark Law causing all of my cards to get banished actually does matter here. It matters in the sense that if it weren't the case, I would be able to OTK. I think if nothing else with Shadow Mosquito, but I can't really set up my plays through Sprint, Numping Angler, or my Swap Frog, because again, the Dark Law is going to be banishing everything. So I don't know. I was looking through my extra deck, and it's like, I feel like I did not have much of a choice other than to just straight up battle and then make plays on main phase 2. Like, I could have tried to make a 3200 Gigantic, but it would just take it up a ton of my bodies only to not OTK anyway. So it's like, we'll just crash Fenrir and then smack him with everything on board, and then use the remaining bodies to combo off. I just did not really foresee a way to be able to OTK here, unfortunately. And even if I was playing the not double cross, what's the quick play spell card? Wow, I can't remember it. What's it called? Hang on. Really? Oh, does it show up in related cards? How does it not show up? Is it only showing me related cards from my deck? No, because Smasher's isn't in my deck. Whatever. Even if I had the quick play spell that buffed, I would have had to have added that instead of Starter off of Jet. Which, I guess I would have had another Starter in hand, but then the problem is they would have resolved double Dark Law, so I would have had to have chained the quick play spell that buffs, and I think that would have still not been an OTK at that point. I think that's right. Anyway, whatever. We do set up Red, Carrot, and IP on our end board here, but I know they've got a lot of plays. They've got Stratos, they've got Super Poly, or not Super Poly, just regular Poly, thankfully. But they've got an Imperm on the Spright Red here as well. So unfortunately, I'm not able to negate plus destroy Stratos, which was my original plan. However, I am going to let them battle over the IP here, because not only can I just use Elf to revive the IP anyway, but the fact that they've battled now means that I'm going to get another turn, meaning I have another opportunity to come back. And at only 4,000 life points, a Shadow Mosquito OTK would be very, very simple for me to pull off here. Alright, they're going to go for Polymerization. I shouldn't have used IP here. For some reason, I just had it in my head that I would get the... No, I remember what it is. I was like, okay, I'll go IP into SP here, and then I can use Elf to revive Red, forgetting that I had already used Elf in order to revive IP. So I guess in that regard, I should have just gone IP. I should have banished a Stratos as they ended their main. Then I could have Elf revived Red, and then had a negate plus destroy. Shoot, that is totally how I should have done it, huh? That would have made more sense, yeah. Rip. Rip me. Yeah, just totally forgetting. That's a really common thing. For some reason, between, like, phases, sometimes I forget that I've already used a once per turn effect. So they're going to use the Voltic Giant to clear my board, but I'm going to use Little Knight to banish out the Elf before they do, because however much they pop off here, I'm going to get my Spright Elf back during the end phase, which means I have a really easy opportunity to go into the Shadow Mosquito OTK, potentially. Alright, so they're setting up... They're just making plays at this point. Setting up everything they've got. They're going to fuse Voltic Giant plus Mally into Elemental Hero Sunrise. Sunrise first effect is going to add Miracle Effusion. Now, Miracle Fusion... They are going to use it here in a second, but they're going to go for the Cross Crusader first. Alright, Cross Crusader F going to revive the Mally. Now they're going to tribute the Mally in order to add Furnace. Masked Hero Furnace gets to activate. They're going to add another Mask Change. And here, I'm like, okay. They've got a Dark Law in the graveyard. No, they don't have a Dark Law in the graveyard. Did they both get banished or did I bounce one? Oh, I bounced one. Or one got shuffled back to the extra deck somehow. Yeah, because I was like, surely they won't have a third Dark Law, but they are going to end up using a Mask Change here. But even if they Mask Change into Dark Law, that doesn't super matter at this point. Yeah, they are going to go for the Mask Change. I decided to chain Little Knight, if nothing else than to force out, yeah, Contrast Hero Chaos does have a quick effect to negate for any face-up card on the field. So we had to force that. Now they're going to go into the Dark Law. Blue adds Jet, and I'm just like, please, just Dark Law, don't banish Jet. And of course it banished Jet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to overlay Elf plus Little Knight into Gigantic. Now we're going to activate Gigantic, summoning Jet from deck. Jet's going to add Starter. Now we're going to activate Starter and summon out my Blast Blue. Now we're going to overlay the two blues and go for the Ninja Shadow Mosquito. And this should, in theory, be enough to OTK. However, yeah, hero players out there were probably screaming at their screen as I was doing this combo line. I totally forgot, or rather didn't even know, about Sunrise's second effect, the secret effect. It can destroy a monster when a hero monster battles, which means it can pop my Shadow Mosquito. I was so upset. I was so upset. Because remember, this was my rank up game too, and I thought I was just about to win it here in a really clutch way. But it turns out, no, not the case. I did later end up ranking up, but yeah. Don't worry, I didn't sit there and time them out either. I was just legitimately at like 8 seconds left, so I was just like trying to figure out if there was anything I could do, and by the time it went down to 3 seconds, I was like, nah, I'm just done. So, yeah, that was a really, really good back and forth, though. GG's to my opponent there, for sure. All right, let me show you the deck list, and then we will finish up. And here is my list for Fiendsmith Spright. This is the same list that I showed in my last video. And I think with 3 Fenrir, this is still my favorite variant. I actually think this is probably just the best variant right now, too, with Fenrir being at 3. You know, when you're playing Spright, one thing you're always kind of asking yourself is, like, what is my secondary engine gonna be? Because even if you're not on another dedicated archetype like Live Twin or, you know, Fiendsmith or something like that, you're still playing, like, either the Dark Beckoning Beast package or something else like, I don't know, like Mutants or something like that. But yeah, I really do think with Fenrir being at 3, this is the best way to play it because, again, even if you open like Fenrir plus Fuelos, you can still link them into Moon, do your Fiendsmith line, and then you can go Sequence plus one of your bodies in order to make the Sprint dumping Angler, getting your Beavers, and then doing full Spright combo. So even if doing it that way you miss out on Caesar, that still means that Fenrir plus anything you can normal summon, even if it's not level 2, is still full Spright combo. And as we demonstrated from the first replay, even against a current meta deck like Elfnote, the quote-unquote pure Spright endboard is still more than enough to handle it. This build also has quite a lot of room for off-engine as well. Like, I've got triple Imperm here, but you could also be rocking some more board breakery stuff if you'd rather have, you know, that for going second. Like triple Tactics Talent is a really good one. Forbidden Droplet is not bad in this deck because you have a lot of good things like the Angler and Ronin and stuff to send to the graveyard. You could also, like, okay. I was going to say you could also play Super Poly if you really, really wanted to, but I think squeezing in those extract targets and a Fiendsmith stuff would be a bit much. But if you were to go for a different engine besides Fiendsmith, you could think about Super Poly, which is obviously a very, very powerful board breaker right now. Yeah, I don't know. There's not too much else I have to say about this list, just because I already talked about it quite a bit relatively recently, and the list itself hasn't changed. We're just still doing Spright things, and using it to rank up even in a 2026 meta. Yeah, it's really easy to feel like, oh, Spright, it's a free deck they give you, so surely it's not that good, but I think that it's actually really strong. I think if more people were on it and it had better representation, then you could make an argument for it being a tier 3 deck, even above other rogue decks. It's really, really solid, but it's also my favorite deck, so take my glazing with a grain of salt. In any case, thank you so very much for watching. Super appreciate it. Why don't we go ahead now and move on to the outro so we can thank our YouTube members and Patreon subscribers. Hey everybody, Hexlex here. Thank you so very much for watching all the way to the very end of the video, which by the way is one of the best ways to support the channel. Speaking of supporting the channel, take a look at the names on screen. These are folks who have been so generous as to either join as a YouTube member or subscribe over on patreon.com/Hexlex to support. There's also perks for doing so. If you would like to see YouTube videos early, as well as some exclusive videos that get uploaded to YouTube, but for one reason or another I decide not to publish, definitely go ahead and hit that join button to see content early, as well as some exclusive content. If you're looking for more exclusive content, over on patreon.com, I upload exclusive videos that are not posted on YouTube just about every single day. Whether you choose to subscribe over on Patreon, join as a YouTube member, or simply continue to watch, your support is greatly appreciated. Thank you so very much. But for now, this is Hexlex. I am signing out, and I hope that you have a fantastic day.